Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to USGLC's 2025 Tribute Awards ceremony.
The Center for U.S. Global Engagement launched our effort.
The Global Leadership Campaign is simply indispensable.
Promoting global stability, saving lives, opening markets, investing in people, creating jobs.
Driving the discussion about development and diplomacy.
A critical space in the foreign policy arena.
The full strength of America.
I feel much safer for my grandchildren if the leading country in the world is called the United States of America.
You bring together the private sector, the defense community, the diplomacy and the development communities, the faith and volunteerism and service communities.
We were bipartisan even before it was cool.
While you may be strange bedfellows, the world is a much better place with your support.
And I don't think you have ever been more important.
This is in America's best interest.
It makes us safer, and it develops markets for American products.
The biggest mistake of all for America is to withdraw.
Ask anyone in the military.
30 years in the Air Force. Don't remember ever hearing, are you Republican or are you a Democrat?
None of us wants to send our men and women to war if we don't have to.
Heck no, we're not cutting our development aid budget. That puts soldiers in danger.
It didn't surprise me in the least to see a lot of other retired generals and flags come into this organization.
Like-minded individuals who realize that the military can't go it alone.
It takes a lot to get me back to Washington.
I know, and you know what?
And PEPFAR is it.
Let's talk about this U.S. Global Leadership Coalition.
The U.S. Global Leadership Coalition,
which advocates for strong U.S. global leadership.
Unrest and poverty, thousands of miles away, can actually have a direct impact on lives right here in Utah.
Trade supports 1.4 million jobs in Pennsylvania.
The U.S. Global Leadership Coalition.
Heartland Summit happened today in Sioux City.
Allegheny County.
Northeast Florida.
Central Oklahoma.
The leaders in foreign policy and global affairs joined together for a summit today in Wilmington.
In Louisville yesterday.
Today in Kalamazoo.
125 political, business, and community leaders,
all working towards diplomacy policies that keep America a global leader.
This isn't charity. This is jobs in South Georgia.
What USGLC has done for years and is doing in this moment is so critical.
We use you every way we can on the Hill for our common goals.
You all are the face of America.
You were one of the first groups that we reached out to.
America First is not America alone, and certainly not isolationism.
Because there are billions of people that are counting on America being America.
We can use U.S. innovation to solve these problems.
And I'm a USGLC
next-gen global leader.
We are farmers for prosperity.
I'm a veteran for smart power.
I'm a veteran for smart power.
If we want a better future for our kids and grandkids, American retreat is not an option.
Because when America leads, the world is safer, freedom is stronger, and the future is brighter.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage USGLC President and CEO Liz Schreier.
Good evening. Am I on? Can you hear me? Well, welcome to USGLC at 30. Now, I have to tell you, I couldn't be prouder standing here with all of you and embracing our theme and paying tribute to our theme tonight, which is our community, our USGLC community, and partnership and impact. Now, I want to start with a toast and a thank you to all of you, to this wonderful community. When I think back to 30 years ago, I want to ask those in the back if you can just be a little quieter so everybody up here can hear. When I think back 30 years ago, I remember watching sitting members of Congress literally brag that they didn't own a passport, thinking that it was okay for America to pull back in the world. And just a little bit later, 9/11 reminded our nation how dangerous that would have been. Now, fortunately, in 1995, a few of us that are actually here today sat around a table, and we thought that it was time to join together, to raise our voice, and to engage policymakers about the importance of American global leadership, of diplomacy, of international assistance, not just because it was nice to have, but that it was a strategic imperative. USGLC began our journey. And I remember when the Washington Post first called us the Strange Bedfellows Coalition, which probably would be offensive to some people, but to USGLC, it was like a badge of honor. That in a society that divides, that we would be a community that unites. Young and old, military and faith leaders, business and farmers, Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike. And united around the idea that Americans believe that when Americans lead in the world, American win in the world. And over the decades, there's been this enormous impact that you all created. Everything from enhancing our food security and clean water, to investing and lifting up women and girls and citizens in their own community, to saving 26 million lives through PEPFAR, Gavi, the Global Fund, to being part of groundbreaking, innovative programs like the Millennium Challenge Corporation, working with President Trump in his first term to pass the BUILD Act and create the Development Finance Corporation. I can remember policy wins over these decades of dozens and dozens of policy laws that were passed that strengthened development and diplomacy that all of you should be so proud of. And the impact is breathtaking. And you should all give yourself a round of applause for what was accomplished. Now, I'm also not naive. I know that this year has been one of great disruption that has also caused for many great pain. And we can and we should debate which policies make our world safer, stronger, and more prosperous. I'm very proud that USGLC has been part of this debate, and all of you have journeyed with that along with us, bringing to the table reform ideas along with our blueprint of how America wins in the world. I'm proud that USGLC is working with Congress and the administration on the opportunities ahead. When I got to greet everybody as we walked into this room, I saw so many important partners that are incredible. They're doers, business and nonprofit leaders, experts from Capitol Hill, longtime friends and new friends that work in the administration, all of whom we look forward to working with to shape the policies and opportunities ahead. And I see so many of our supporters that have given us their time, their talent, and their support to make all of our work possible. This evening, we're going to hear from shortly some incredible friends of ours. Our new National Chair, Admiral Mike Mullen. My dear friend, the Undersecretary at USDA, Luke Lindbergh. And the senior senator from the great state of Delaware, Chris Coons. And each of them are going to help pay tribute to our honorees, veterans who understand what it takes to make us safer, farmers who understand what it takes to make us stronger, and our small business leaders who understand what it takes to make us more prosperous. And how lucky for us that we have the privilege to shine a spotlight on these great Americans. So as I look to the next 30 years, I am actually an optimist. And there's lots of reasons, but I'm going to share one personal one. In the midst of this very complex year that we are coming to the end of, I was blessed with 3 more grandchildren, totaling 6 now. Yay. So my 2 sons had babies on the same day, 4 hours apart. So if you're doing the math, that's one set of twins. It was a little unexpected. But like any of you, if you have kids and if you're lucky enough to be a grandparent, you'll understand this is the essence of why we're all here tonight. that we want to leave the world a little bit better for the next generation. So my optimism is this, is I saw 30 years ago what this community did. And I believe deeply in this community that we can make the world safer and make America stronger and better by bringing together this strange bedfellow coalition, because that is the magic and that is the power of everybody sitting in this room. So I thank you for being here tonight. It's going to be a wonderful period of time that we're going to share together. And I am so grateful for this evening that we have to celebrate our community. So let's get this party started, and I want to begin with our first tribute.
Liz, your optimism inspires all of us. Good evening. I'm Norm Coleman. I'm thrilled to welcome you to this very special evening celebrating USGLC's 30 amazing years. I'm truly proud to serve as co-chair of the USGLC's Board of Directors and stand with all of you, this community, in recognition of the partnership and impact we have had in delivering for the American people and for the world. USGLC has never been as important or as impactful as it is today, and while we know this has been a year of complexity, no one has and will continue to lead as effectively as USGLC. Thank you for all being part of this crucial community now more than ever. Give yourselves a round of applause. My job tonight is to introduce a very special friend who will lead our first of three tributes, a tribute to American farmers. And as a former senator of Minnesota, serving on the Agriculture Committee, coming from a state that is #1 in sugar beet production, #1 in turkeys, #2 in soybeans, and on, #2, sweet corn, #3 in soybeans, and many others, I am so proud to make this introduction. Leading our tribute to America's farmers and USGLC's special community, Farmers for Prosperity, will be USGLC's dear friend, Luke Lindbergh, Undersecretary for Trade and Foreign Agricultural Affairs for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. He is a superstar with extraordinary skill, talent, passion, and impact well beyond his years. At USDA, he leads a powerful portfolio that is tasked with expanding markets for American agriculture, and already he has an outsized impact. He truly understands the full ecosystem and has become a leading voice advocating for the imperative to address food security around the globe at a time of rising humanitarian needs. Today, his portfolio includes the management of Food for Peace program, alongside the McGovern-Dole Food for Education international programs. He works closely with key partner organizations such as the World Food Program, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, in addressing humanitarian hotspots where the food has been urgently needed, as well as investing in emerging economies that are seeking to move up from aid to trade. He has worked tirelessly to lift up America's farmers as they play a leading role in feeding the world. USGLC is proud of our longtime partnership with Undersecretary Lindbergh, not only working with him during President Trump's first administration, where he served as the Export-Import Bank Chief of Staff, but also partnering with him in his home state of South Dakota, where he led South Dakota's trade and served on USGLC's South Dakota Advisory Committee, leading our effort as we hosted our local town hall event with Senate Majority Leader John Thune. On a night when we are celebrating the partners who have shaped the last 30 years, we are grateful to partner with the Undersecretary as we look ahead to build the future, and tonight pay tribute to America's farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure of mine to introduce to you Undersecretary Luke Lindbergh.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to be here with you all tonight. Are there any farmers in the room? Raise your hand if you're a farmer. Raise your hand if you're related to a farmer. Raise your hand if you eat food. All right, good. Me too. Well, it is an honor to be here with you all tonight. I don't want to spill that, excuse me. And thank you to Liz and the entire USGLC team, and certainly to my friend, Senator Coleman, for the warm introduction tonight. It's an honor to be paying tribute to America's farmers. I've spent many years here in Washington and have been surrounded by people who often think that the food chain starts at Whole Foods and ends with $12 avocado toast. Actually, in D.C., it's more like $25 avocado toast. In South Dakota, it's more like $12 avocado toast, but we won't get there. I often get briefed on global supply chains, strategic stockpiles, and food indices. I nod politely. Then I think about the Iowa farmer I met who woke up at 4 a.m. last week because one of his sows was farrowing in a snowstorm, and he still made sure the rest of us had bacon for breakfast. Or the sorghum farmer in Kansas who sweats through the summer on a plow and plants and harvests and then does it all over again a few months later. That, my friends, is the real strategic stockpile. It's not in a government warehouse or at Whole Foods. I won't make too much fun of Whole Foods tonight. I'm sorry for the Whole Foods folks in the room. It is the calloused hands, the iron wills, and the weather-beaten barns of America's farmers and ranchers that is the real strategic stockpile. You all feed 330 million Americans each and every day and produce enough grain, feed, proteins to feed another billion people overseas. We export $170 billion worth of American agricultural products each and every year, and it's a beautiful thing. You quietly fight global food insecurity while fostering global stability that keeps us safe here at home, and yet you often never take the credit that you deserve. You've turned the Midwest into a breadbasket, California into a fruit bowl, and the plains into the meat counter. And you do it while fighting weather that acts like sometimes it has a personal grudge against you, against regulators who have never changed a hydraulic line in their life, and commodity prices that often make the stock market look stable. Yet every morning you wake up, the sun comes up, the tractor starts, usually at least, and people eat because of you. So tonight is for saying thank you to our farmers out loud, to the toughest, most patriotic, most indispensable workforce on planet Earth, America's farmers and ranchers. You all don't just grow crops, you grow freedom. Because a nation that can feed itself and share its bounty with the world is both more generous and more secure. So here's to you, the people who make the impossible look routine, who turn dirt and sweat into abundance and strength. May your yields be high, your prices higher, your grains gentle, your government helpful. We're still working on that one a little bit. And may your tables always be surrounded by family, friends, and the blessings you've earned 1,000 times over. Would all of you here at the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition raise your glasses and join me in toasting our American farmers and ranchers? Thank you very much for having me tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage USGLC co-chair Candi Wolff.
Well, thank you all. That was just an incredible presentation. So I'm Candi Wolff, and I am the proud co-chair of USGLC's Board of Directors and the Global Head of Government Affairs for Citigroup. I'm thrilled to be here tonight and have the pleasure of introducing our next special guest, who is here to help us pay tribute to America's business leaders. Senator Chris Coons is a senior senator from Delaware and one of the most consequential and dedicated champions in Congress, working to bolster America's diplomacy and international assistance resources. He's widely regarded as a preeminent expert on U.S. foreign policy and as one of the most effective bridge builders in Washington, a reputation that has allowed him to advance game-changing legislation to strengthen and modernize America's international assistance tools. The Senator's passion for foreign policy and his commitment to American small businesses are a natural fit, given his focus on America's economic security and strengthening U.S. competitiveness at home and abroad. As a senior member of the Appropriations Committee, including as ranking member of the Subcommittee on Defense, as well as the Foreign Relations, Small Business, Judiciary, and Ethics Committee. I think he's certainly rather busy given the number of commitments. These assignments, as well as his commitment to bipartisanship, has made him an especially effective policymaker on Capitol Hill. This effectiveness drives his work for his home state of Delaware, where he is committed to empowering small businesses in the state and across the country to drive the U.S. economy, helping them grow, innovate, and compete globally. Senator, it's great to see you again in many different forums. I got to spend some time a year or so ago in Delaware, and it's fitting to have you here tonight, as USGLC has had the pleasure of honoring you at our 20th anniversary tribute back in 2015. We're grateful to have you here now as we honor the small business leaders at the heart of America's economic strength. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Senator Chris Coons.
Thank you so much, Candi, and thank you, Liz. Thank you for your leadership, for your strength, your skill, and your vision. 30 years of partnership, 30 years of bringing together the very best of America and helping us hear and see and work with each other across changes at home and abroad. I've hosted a USGLC facilitated conference in Delaware many times to help the business community in Delaware, the folks who have come to join us from other parts of the world, from our military and our national security community, from our development and faith communities. And it is one of the most consequential things I've done in 25 years as an elected official, to have the USGLC validate to the people of my home state that what we're doing together through partnership, working across the aisle, delivers real results for our nation, for our security, for our prosperity, for our future. So why don't you give these two great leaders of the USGLC and yourselves another round of applause and thanks. My father was a small businessman, an entrepreneur who launched a manufacturing company in East Baltimore. My stepfather was a small businessman, an entrepreneur who started a business in his basement. So the impact of those two businesses on my childhood, my view of the world, and my service in the Senate has been lifelong. I spent a decade in county government, where a huge amount of what I did was to help small businesses get permits, get open, get functioning, to give them a fair and predictable regulatory environment, to help them get through the thicket of government and on to the positive byways of job production and sales at home and abroad. Once I came here to the Senate, I was honored to join the Small Business Committee in my first Congress, and now to be an appropriator for the Small Business Administration. We owe America's small businesses an environment where government is not the adversary, but a partner and a supporter, where we recognize the vast majority of our small businesses are going to grow other jobs and other opportunities, and that export in partnership with government is one of their greatest opportunities to grow. I just introduced today, actually, with my dear friend Senator Todd Young, also an active participant in USGLC events, the Digital Trade Promotion Act, which is designed to help level the playing field, to compete with transparency, with privacy protections, with fairness, so that digital trade can be one of the opportunities for small business for the 21st century. I could go, well, that's worth a round of applause. Why not? Thank you. I think we've got Aqua Science from Delaware represented among the small businesses here today. A remarkable, cutting-edge, fascinating technology that allows bioluminescent bacteria to test toxicity in water, regardless of what the toxin is. I encourage you to look it up. It's a small but rapidly growing business that has a fascinating technology solution that is scalable at home and abroad. Forgive me for referencing one, Liz. I'm sure I should have referenced 5 more, but I had to mention one from Delaware. Let me conclude by simply saying this, that small business is the engine that drives America. Small business is the engine that takes risks, that develops new technologies, that delivers solutions for our nation and our future. And it's my honor on behalf of the USGLC to honor America's small business leaders for the contribution you make to making America more prosperous at home and stronger abroad. So will the small business leaders who are with us tonight please stand so we can thank you and recognize you with a thunderous round of applause from 30 years of USGLC. You represent the dreams and hard work of millions of small businesses. Thank you for who you are and what you do and your contributions to 30 years of USGLC. Thank you and good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage USGLC Co-Chair Sean Callahan.
Good evening. I'm Sean Callahan, the proud co-chair of the USGLC Board and President and CEO of Catholic Relief Services. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to introduce our final special guest, joining us as we honor and pay tribute to America's veterans. Admiral Mike Mullen is one of our nation's most respected and decorated military leaders, a man whose service and leadership have shaped America's national security for more than 4 decades. And we are especially proud that he serves as the USGLC's national chair. Admiral Mullen served 43 years in uniform, rising from young naval officer deployed off the coast of Vietnam to ultimately becoming the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest-ranking military officer in the United States. As chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he helped guide the United States through major moments of transition and consequence, while also championing reform and modernization inside the force, including the establishment of the U.S. Cyber Command. Throughout his career, he has been known not only for his strategic vision, but for his deep commitment to America's alliances, to diplomacy, and to building a military ready for complex challenges of the 21st century. Admiral Mullen, we're deeply honored to have you with us tonight. Following the special tribute to America's veterans, Admiral Mullen will be joined for a brief fireside chat conversation with USGLC's President and CEO, Liz Straker. But now, please join me in giving a round of applause to welcome on the stage the remarkable strength, integrity, and service of Admiral Mike Mullen.
Thank you, Sean, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening to all of you. Thank you, Liz, for your 30 years of dedication to this incredible organization and its impact. This evening, it is our distinct privilege to honor a quintessential American community, America's veterans, including paying a special tribute to USGLC's veterans for a smart power network. And we just honored business leaders, and coincidentally, 2 weeks ago, and I'd like to talk about one and an idea, I did a celebration in New York and a fireside chat with Jamie Dimon, who I sat next to at a dinner in 2011, and we were talking about veterans, individuals who were coming out of the military. And Jamie looked at me, says, well, what can I do? And I said, hire them. 2 weeks ago, and 20,000 veterans later at JP Morgan Chase, and 1 million veterans later for the coalition that Dimon put together of 350 companies, we've hired 1 million veterans, not for jobs, but for careers. So I don't have to tell this crowd that American veterans are men and women who have served our country with great honor. Not surprising, over and over again, we have seen our service members continue their spirit of service well beyond their time in the military, giving back to America in so many ways when they return back home. 20 years ago, USGLC began engaging retired 3- and 4-star generals and admirals, now nearly 300 that make up the National Security Advisory Council. And if there's anything that would tell you about the significance of engagement and diplomacy and alliances and relationship, it is that number and those individuals alone. We are honored to have a strong delegation of veterans for Smart Power leaders joining us here tonight, representing the thousands and thousands across our country. Please join me in paying tribute for their continued service on behalf of our nation, for speaking out, standing up for America's global leadership. And I ask those who are in attendance, those veterans who are in attendance, to please stand up. You make us all proud, and you make such a huge difference. And it's an honor to be with you here this evening. Thank you.
So I get the honor for a few moments to chat with you, Admiral Mullen. I have to tell you, I don't know, the chairman will not remember this, but the first time I met then Chairman Mullen, you won't remember this, we had a dinner, a USGLC small dinner. You got called out 4 times in that dinner. I have no idea what crisis was pulling you out, but so don't leave tonight. I'm worried he's going to keep getting out. But I want to tell the audience something. There are 2 things I took away besides what you shared with us. Your grace and your brilliance. Your grace was how kind you were, that I can't even imagine what was going on, but your brilliance, that you didn't miss a beat of remembering what we were talking about every time you came back. So thank you for being with us. How lucky we are to have you as the chair. And here's the first thing I want you to maybe share with us. there's somebody that is near and dear, was near and dear to both of us, and that's General Colin Powell. And General Powell, as you know, I don't know if everybody knows, but was our national chair for over 15 years from the time he left the State Department. And I know you called him a friend and a mentor from your time in the Pentagon. So you followed him on two things that I know of, maybe more, but one was as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the second one was as our only other national chair at USGLC. So could you share two things? One is, what about his leadership, his legacy that maybe speaks to you, particularly into our country at this time? And other than the fact that I called you and you were willing to say yes, you know, why USGLC? You are a very sought-after individual, especially after you left the service, that you were willing to add your voice and your name, give and put your mark on USGLC.
Well, I mean, I really meant what I said briefly up there. I think the impact and the potential and the mission of USGLC have been extraordinary. And just meeting those in the room tonight, and it's not just meeting former veterans, it's meeting business leaders, it's meeting individuals from many countries. And I actually fundamentally believe the stronger our alliances are, the stronger our relationships are, the stronger we are around the world, the stronger we're going to be at home. And I think USG and USGLC is right at center mass on that as far as I'm concerned. And when you looked at the video when we came in, literally as we were sitting down, you talk about strange bedfellows. And there is no, I don't think there's any other organization, maybe globally, but certainly not in Washington, that could run that video. And that's a credit to you and your team and your persistence and the belief, the overall belief, I think, in the mission. More so now, even after everything we've been through for the last 30 years, I think more so now than ever.
Thank you.
And the other thing I'd say about General Powell is, who became a mentor of mine because he was willing. And when you go into the chairman's job, you actually might think you know a lot, and you find out pretty quickly you don't know much at all, because you're working in a brand new environment for most of us. And he became a dear friend and mentor, which meant a lot to me. We all need that. And he's a huge loss. And he represented not just the leadership, which was so important, and the example, but he was also the quintessential American dream, where he came from and how hard he worked and how good he was and how he was recognized for that level of excellence time and time again. He cared deeply about our country. He cared deeply about our people. And he cared deeply about our future, to include, obviously, his time here. So it's a real, I'm very humbled to be honestly, to be associated with his name. He was an extraordinary American.
He was a wonderful friend to this community.
Yeah.
And lucky us.
Yeah.
So this is, I'm going to share when I became a fangirl of Admiral Mullen. He was when you were chairman, you may not remember this part too, but I don't know if you made your colleagues at the Pentagon with a little bit of a heartburn when you were, what I'm going to call moonlighting as a lobbyist for the State Department. You wrote a letter, a formal letter to Congress, and it was a letter to support the international affairs budget. It was a letter to support funding for diplomacy and for the international assistance. Other members of the military in uniform did that, but this is what you did differently. You wanted to make sure that they knew it was really from you. And you put a handwritten note at the bottom, and I'm going to read what you wrote. You wrote a handwritten note: the more significant the cuts, the longer military operations will take, and the more and more lives are at risk. How about that? So it's years later, the world is different, there's new risks. Admiral Mullen, how does that ring true to you today in the world that we have? in terms of the civilian side needing to play a complementary role to the military operations in the world we have now?
I've said for a number of years now, I think this is the most dangerous time in my life because of the emergence of China and what they're developing, along with the resurgence beyond my expectations of Russia, combined with the technological advancements, and then in the middle of that, the division we have with this country. I actually think the division feeds our enemies, and they're no fools. They're taking advantage of it. And if I had one message tonight, we need to get through this, and we need to figure out how to work together for each other and for our country, and unify the country as opposed to continue to divide it, because the enemies are watching. And I still haven't changed my mind on how to do this. I think we need to have a very strong economy. We need to support like-minded countries so that they can have a strong economy, and I think that becomes the platform from which we can then engage the rest of the world and actually do so in a very, very peaceful way. Keep the peace, first of all. Secondly, I've believed forever to please lead with diplomacy and assistance wherever we can so that we can avoid the outbreak of any kind of significant conflict. And over the course of my life, sadly, we've missed that more often, and if past is prologue, it's coming again. The only thing now is the weapons and the technology are so much more dangerous than they were in the past, so much more devastating than they were in the past. So the danger is way up. And our relationships with these enemies is, I'll be kind to say, strained at best, but worrisome, because they see us in such division. They look at the opportunities that are presented to them to, in their own way, become us and lead the world. And I still believe in us as a country. I believe the strongest possible way we can create who we are for the future and be as strong as we can is to provide that leadership where it's most critical to preserve the opportunities, quite frankly, for America as well as other people around the world who still see us in so many ways as that shining city on the hill.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So, as I was prepared...
You said there were going to be 2 questions.
I've got one more. I'll try to get 2 more in, but at least one more. So I was preparing for this, and I actually looked at your resume. I probably should have done this before I asked you for as a national chair, because there was one little thing on it I hadn't picked up. So I have to ask you this. Sorry, I'm doing it in front of the whole group. But is it true that in your first time you commanded a ship, you actually struck a buoy?
In naval terms, we call it a collision.
A collision. Okay.
And colliding with anything on a ship is not a good thing.
Okay, so that was not a good thing. And I understand, if I read your resume correctly and your background correctly, but doing my little research, that it set your career back a little bit.
11 years.
11 years. All right. So you still made it. Like you did pretty well. So maybe we'll end with there's something about resilience and perseverance that obviously you know a little bit about. So as you heard me open, this has been a little bit of a complicated year for this community. Yeah. So lessons learned. What can you share with us about resilience that you found, about resilience, about perseverance? Because we care deeply about America, global leadership, you just shared that in your last answer, and about making sure we lead with and we engage with diplomacy, with international assistance, with American global leadership. You sat for 11 years to get your career back on track. You're here as one of the most important leaders in our country. We're so honored to have you as our national chair. Share your lessons learned.
So I still am fortunate. I actually teach a group of seniors a leadership course at the Naval Academy.
Wonderful.
And where we start with is at the beginning of the course, we start with the evaluation that came out of that collision, which I describe as an F for failure, no future, go find something else to do. It's not there. But the point is, we all fail, and I did, and I was the captain, so it all goes to the captain, and that's fine, and I understood that, and I held myself accountable. That's the beauty of command at sea, quite frankly. You're accountable for everything. And then it was, certainly it wasn't easy. But what I learned from that was it's not about the failure. It's about how you respond to the failure. It's how you get back up off the deck. Do you learn the lesson? It's not good to repeat it, and I didn't. But do you learn the lesson and then press on? Now, hold yourself accountable and move forward. The other aspect of this, and we mentioned this with General Powell, or Secretary Powell, is I could not have done this without an exquisite mentor. I had no idea how to navigate the system. I was 26 at the time. No idea how to try to repair my record, which took me the better part of 4 or 5 years. And it's a wonderful lesson in today's world because I was assured in that reparation that fitness report had disappeared forever, had gone away. And I just before I retired, and John Kirby was my public affairs officer for 10 years, just like a week before I retired, I asked Kirby, I said, go see if you can find that fitness report, wherever we put our records. Within 24 hours, he came back with a copy of it. And my message to the young ones today is be very careful what you type anywhere.
Post.
Don't believe it's going away. Don't believe the app, because it'll come back to haunt you. So there was lots there. I loved what I was doing. I loved the engagement overseas. I loved the Western Pacific in particular, where I was the first tour of my life. You'd mentioned Vietnam. And I wanted to do it again. And it was a challenge for me out there. And fortunately, 11 years later, I got to do it over. And I did a little better the second time.
Well, you ended up in the highest position in the land. And how lucky we are that in your second part of your service, you've given voice to USGLC.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Admiral Mullen for his incredible service.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks.
To salute him. And to close out our evening, let me welcome to the stage our final co-chair, our fourth co-chair, and my wonderful dear friend, the former mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, Mayor Steve Benjamin.
Good evening. I'm the closing act. How you feel about that? The only thing standing between you and the bar. How you like that? I am Steve Benjamin, the very proud co-chair of the USGLC Board of Directors, former mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, and former senior advisor to President Biden for public engagement. Before we formally conclude tonight's award ceremony, I want to take a moment to acknowledge some of the many special guests who joined us this evening. Of course, in addition to Senator Coons, I want to welcome our many good friends from Capitol Hill who also joined us this evening. Indiana Representative Jim Baird, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, Missouri Representative Wesley Bell, Nevada Senator Jacky Rosen as well. In addition to Undersecretary Lindbergh, it was also a privilege to welcome many friends from the Trump administration. From the White House, OMB Associate Director for Homeland Security Brian Cavanaugh, Council of Economic Advisors, Chief of Staff Alexander Titus, Chair of the Council of Economic Advisors and Federal Reserve Board Governor Stephen Moran, and many more. From the State Department, Deputy Assistant Secretary Brendan O'Brien, Deputy Assistant Secretary Stephanie Williams, Jeff Graham, Undersecretary Jeff Helberg, and many, many more. From the DFC, Conor Coleman. From MCC, Dan Petrie. From USTDA, Tom Hardy. From USDA, Deputy Undersecretary Michelle Beckering, Riley Barnes as well. From Commerce, Deputy Assistant Secretary Brad McKinney, and many more colleagues from the administration. We're also very honored to be joined by so many members of the diplomatic corps from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We had representatives from Angola, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Egypt, the European Union, France, Jordan, Kenya, Mexico, Namibia, the Netherlands, Oman, Rwanda, Switzerland, Taiwan, Tanzania, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, and Zambia. We're also joined tonight by the Ari Rowland Quartet, an alumni of the American Music Abroad program. Also want to take just a very brief moment to recognize a few longtime friends and champions of USGLC who are here tonight. We're so grateful for your dedicated support over the last 30 years. Ambassador Mark Green, Representative David Cicilline, Secretary Dan Glickman, General Kip Ward, and new co-chair of USGLC's National Security Advisory Council, General Laura Richardson. And finally, we want to express our deepest appreciation to our diplomat sponsors, ADM, Baird, Gilead, and Merck, along with our gratitude to our generous changemaker, partner, and friend donors, and our individual champions and supporters. We'd also like to recognize the dedicated leadership of the USGLC, every individual on our board of directors, both current and past, including many of our founding members that are here tonight. A profound and sincere thank you. A round of applause for everyone tonight. And finally, USGLC's National Advisory Council, National Security Advisory Council, and state advisory committees who enable the USGLC to deepen its impact here in Washington and all across this great nation. So please, again, join me in extending a warm round of applause. I'm a big believer the two most powerful words in the English language are thank you. My wife says they're yes, ma'am. I still think they're thank you. So a round of applause to all of our great supporters from across this country. So we actually have one final tribute tonight. I want to invite some of my dear friends to join me on stage real quick. Sean, rock and roll.
Okay. So we've gone a little bit rogue. We'd like to do one more tribute. So we've done a tribute to the farmers, we did a tribute to small business, and we did a tribute to the veterans. And we're recognizing the 30th anniversary of USGLC, and we'd like to do a tribute to Liz Schreier. Now you'd be amazed how difficult it is to keep anything from Liz. But let me tell you why we're going to recognize Liz, and I want to give you a quick little story. When I was in India, I went to a presentation on HIV/AIDS, and a young woman was up on the stage. Her name was Pooja. And she began her presentation by saying, "I am blessed to have HIV and AIDS." And after her presentation, I went up and thanked her for the presentation and all. And she said, "You didn't like my presentation, did you?" And I said, "Why do you say that?" And she said, "When I began my presentation, I looked at your face and you know, and it looked like it was crinkled up." And I said, "I just can't imagine why someone would say they'd be blessed to have HIV and AIDS." And then she went on to tell me that she was married off at the age of 15 to a gentleman who looked sick. And that in fact he was sick and she got AIDS. But she said, "Now I am able to meet with people like you, change the world, and save lives." And so we gather here today to recognize so many people, but we're going to recognize Liz, and we're not going to recognize her necessarily for being the founder of the USGLC, for the 30 years that they've been committed to U.S. global leadership. We're not going to recognize her for the great team that she has made out of the USGLT team that really organizes these events. We're not going to recognize her for pound for being the best and the toughest advocate here in Washington, D.C., but we are going to recognize her for the belief that she has in this country that we can be the best nation on earth and assist other people. We are going to recognize her because she believes in everyone in this room, the business leaders, the farmers, the military peoples, the nonprofits, the faith-based organization. And most importantly, we'll recognize her because she believes that people like Pooja need a chance. And we're the ones who can give her that chance. And if we don't, shame on us. So let's thank you to Liz Strayer.
Are you finishing? You're finishing.
I used to have a gavel. I don't have a gavel anymore. This meeting is hereby adjourned. Food, drinks, already paid for. Eat and drink it all.